Hey, it's Ashley and I'm back with another haircut tutorial. Today we're going to be going over a gentleman's cut with a number 1 guard on the sides, faded up with a hard part. If you don't know, I am a licensed cosmetologist and barber of 10 years. I hope you can learn something from this video. And let's get to it. I will start by combing out my client's hair and checking for any imperfections and making sure that the haircut that I did last time turned out well. Then grabbing my number 1 guard, I am going in right below the parietal ridge and keeping my clippers square on the head. As I go around his ear, I'm just cleaning up any extra hairs, and then I am going to work my way to the back of my client's head. I will then make sure I have a light drop by the occipital bone for my client so that his head shape looks very soft on him instead of just going all the way around with a hard line with that number 1 guard. So as I'm fading with my number 1 guard, I am making sure as I get to where I want to start to create my fade line, I am scooping out my clippers. So you can see I'm going in and I am tapping into that line, and then after I create a little bit of a fade, I will go and clean up that side of the head with my number 1 guard, making sure that I'm getting everything underneath where I started my fade at that same number 1 guard level. If you're noticing that you're getting any like square lines in your haircut, it might be because you're just not cutting everything down to the right guard. So you want to make sure that you go over your area at least 3 times. So as you can see, here's my second time coming back into that area, and then I am going to start clearing away any bulk at the back of the neck. I kind of left that for later so that when I go around the head, I'm keeping the same pace and the same level. And then I am double checking that I am even in my mirror before opening my clippers and going in with a 1 open, creating a 1.5. And then just going into where I started to flick out my 1 guard previously, I'm going to meet that 1.5 guard there and just scoop out lightly about 1/2 inch. I am not trying to take away a lot of this weight with that 1.5 fade. I am just lightly tapping in so that I can continue fading up to where I can get to a point that I can blend with my clipper over comb or my shear over comb. Putting on my 1.5 guard, I will go and tap in to where I was with my 1 guard opened on my clippers. This 1.5 guard is closed, and I am tapping in right below that same line that I was working on. And we're just lightly going up about 1/2 inch every single time we open our clippers or switch our guards. Now I will be doing a scissor cut blend on the top with my shear over comb. So if you are not familiar with using your shears, this will be a great video to really go over how I'm going to cut the top of the head with shear over comb. Now if you didn't notice in the video, I did open my clippers and work myself all the way back around to the other side of my client's head with that 1.5 guard opened. And so doing this, I am able to work myself back to my station and then go ahead and grab a number 2 guard to continue fading. But as you can see, I'm going to take this 1.5 guard opened all the way, and I'm going to tap all the way up into my client's part line because this will give him a really seamless blend for how short and how high he likes his number 1 faded on his gentleman haircut. So I am holding his long hair with my comb and making sure that I am going up to that part line, and then I'm lightly giving myself some room to start blending as I go around the back of my client's hair. So I'm going to come back around and make sure I'm tapping into everything and getting it nice and clean cut down to that 1.5 guard as well. And then once I get over here, I'm going to just kind of soften where you can see he's real squared up at so that I can come back in with my scissor over comb or my number 2 guard. So as you can see, I'm going to switch to that number 2 guard. And since I cut the hard part down to a 1.5 on that area, we are not going to need to go into that side with our number 2. Obviously, it will not do anything. I'm going to use my comb and clipper and cut off any excess hair from his length on top, and then making sure I'm holding my clippers sideways and kind of rocking out at a 45-degree angle so that I can keep him some length and squared on this haircut. After I do my clipper work, I like to use my trimmers next. I like to do all of my dry work before wetting down any of my client's hair so that I do not have loose hair sticking to my client when I'm trying to do any trimmer work. So going in and creating my hard part, I know it's a little bit harder to see here, but I am going to use my comb to pull that long hair back on top, and then going in with my trimmers, I am just lightly tapping. And you want to go ahead and make it a lightly wider on the front end of your line compared to going in to the back. You want it to kind of like taper down into nothing on the line so that the hard part can be nice and smooth. I'm then going to go ahead and trim up my client's eyebrows before giving him a C-cup on his hairline. And you want to make sure that you are cleaning off your client's eyebrows. I do like to use a disinfectant on my dust brushers, so I am using that. And then you can see I'm going in with the corner of my trimmers, giving him the C-cup, and then going around his ears, and then following that same line down to the bottom of his neck, and then cleaning all of that up. I will go ahead and most likely taper the back of his neck after I line him, just so that his grow out's nice and smooth. So I'm using that same technique I did on the other side, where I am going and following behind the ears hair growth pattern and then squaring him on his neckline from there. You do want to lightly taper it, but you do not want to cut into your client's hairline dramatically. So then I go around the ears and I am C-cupping the other side of his hair. This video is all in real time and not edited, so it should take you about 5 minutes to cut the sides of the hair and fade it. It should take you about 2 minutes to trim all around the client's hairline, and then it should take you about another maybe 5 to 7 minutes to cut the top of my client's hair. Now, I'm estimating this haircut at about 20 minutes because I did give him a wash. And this is with me not speeding. I am trying to go a little bit slower so that I can show you exactly how to cut. So I'm going in and just editing where I went in with that 1.5 guard open on that hairline and making sure there's no straight straggly hairs that are kind of left over from the clippers. And then I'm going to start to blend. He does have a large cowlick in the back of his head that he does not like to be cut short, because normally I would kind of like blend it round. But since we're not going to do that, I leave it out and then start blending the sides in, which we can already see that there is a lot of weight on the sides, but they are pretty blended. So I'm going to go in at a light 45-degree angle with my shear over comb and just kind of tap in going backwards. Because he pushes his hair back, I like to scissor over comb going in the opposite direction so that it can flow back towards the back of the head. So going in and pulling up from where I shear over combed, I am going to grab the hair and hold it up at that 45-degree angle towards the peak of his head and trim everything just to make sure that I'm cutting my corners off. Now you can see this is going to be a little bit longer in the back, and I'm lightly dusting it because it's normally kept up and pretty short, so we don't have to take a lot of that length off. Now, since I have my sides blended, I am going to trim the bangs, taking about 1/2 inch off of his bangs. I go with my comb and shears and use my comb as a guide and just take about 1/2 inch off, and then I follow that guide throughout with my shears, and then I step over to the other side of my client and I'm going to cut the other side of his bangs even. I'm doing this by picking up the bangs and trimming it down at the same 1/2 inch, just following my guide. Once I do that, I can kind of bring the other side over and cut as well. So then, now that I have my bangs cut out, I'm going to make a mohawk section on the top. And from the bangs, I am going to point cut the top of the hair with a slight elevation towards the front and less elevation towards the back. You can see I am taking length and making sure that we are squaring up as we get towards the peak of his head, because the head shape is more like a curve. And then we will square the back, and I'm just going to point cut into that cowlick that I talked about earlier. So lifting up, I'm going to follow my sections from my mohawk guide that I created by just pulling the hair back and point cutting everything to length. I am not going to necessarily leave one side a lot longer because he pushes it over, and that's because I don't like that super heavy look on the top of my client's hair. So I want it to be more of a like feathered, pushed over look instead of just one big lump of hair going over. So instead of leaving like a really long piece on one side and then a really short piece on the other side, I like it to be very even on top. As you can see, I'm going to pull up on his side that we blended everything together, and I'm going to cut everything square. So you can see from that mohawk section, I kept my other two sections very square on my client's hair. After I square off this section, I'm going to go in and take off just ever so slightly the extra corner that's left over after you do this haircut, which is going to be where I blended that number 2 to my top end, and this is just going to marry everything together. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead and go in with my shear over comb and touch up all of that little extra corner weight that was just sitting in there that we couldn't really see just yet because we didn't have our length for our top cut out. Now I'm also going to take off this slight corner that is created when you push the hair over to one side. And once I have all of that done, I'm going to go in and double check everything. So I'm making sure that my fade's good. I'm making sure that my client's happy. And this is my haircut. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you find something educational about this video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a comment. And I do have a Patreon that you can subscribe to. I will be having my before and after on this video, so I really do hope you enjoyed it. This is just me and my client joking around and making sure he enjoys his haircut. So I hope y'all have a great day. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We did hit 12,000 subscribers the other day. I couldn't be more happy. Thanks, guys.